Welcome to Happily Ever After is just the beginning. Keeping your relationship not just together, but happy, and we mean truly happy, is part art and part science. You've come to the right place. Here's your host, Leslie Dories.
You know the drill. It starts once upon a time, and then there's the meet cute. The knight in shining armor slays dragons, climbs towers, defeats all monsters, and the two lovers live happily ever after. Or do they? I've always wanted to check in with Cindy and Charming, Aurora and Philip, Ariel and Eric, et al., and find out how things are going 5 years and 2 kids later. Now, I know that I call this show Happily Ever After is just the beginning, but that's precisely the point. The hard stuff comes later, and if you're not prepared, well, hopefully you show up in my or some other professional's office. Now, one of the common themes I get is that it's your job to make your partner happy. And in the immortal words of Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? Better yet, where did that unworkable idea come from? So to tackle that question and a few related ones, I'm joined by relationship coach, speaker, and the author of Fixing You is Killing Me, A Conscious Roadmap to Knowing When to Save and When to Leave Your Relationship, Stuart Motola. So thank you so much, Stuart, for coming on the show and talking about this universal but bizarre concept that it's my job to make my partner happy.
Yes. Hi, Leslie. Nice to be on the show. And you want me to, so yes, that's a big concept in my book, first off. Mm-hmm. That was a journey that I was on for 25 years or more. I met my ex-wife when I was 22. And, you know, I have to say, we all become dissolved of that idea that we have to make our partner happy, especially when other people come along into the family system, and those other people being the little ones. Yeah. And so suddenly we have now 2 people who were trying to potentially make each other happy, and whether that worked well enough to get them to the parenthood stage, now they're trying to make little people happy. So I'm chuckling as I say that. Because often partners get demoted. They don't have obviously the full attention of one another. But
that does make it a little challenging, because that's why I talk about little babies don't understand. Wait a minute.
Yeah, so I'm laughing about that one. But for anyone who's just even in a relationship without children, married or not, I mean, let's face it. There's a post-honeymoon phase. What is it? Maybe after 6 months. 2 years, who knows, maybe for some people it's much longer than that. But that time when you get safe enough to trust your partner enough to actually show the parts that you weren't showing before. And we might call them the shadows, the wounds. I'm safe enough to know that I can actually show you the stuff in me that I might actually be scared of looking at myself. And maybe that's part of it. I'm not looking at myself, so now it's going to come sideways out towards you, and I trust you enough that you're not going to walk out the door at the first sign of that. So anyway, I'm almost skipping over the question. Yeah. I'm aware of that. But I'm also getting to the idea that, that's when we get dissolved. That's when that beginning of that illusion gets dissolved. When we start seeing these shadows, hidden parts, etc. But I do think the whole make your partner happy. I mean, it's in the mass media. It's in the commercial industry. For me at 22, I was holding on to All You Need Is Love from the Beatles.
Yeah.
And it took me about 20 years to learn, no, I need trust. I need emotional safety. I need respect. I need to be seen. I need to be heard. I need a lot more than just love. But again, all the music I listened to when I was 14, 15, Prince, Madonna, what was Prince's I Would Die For You. Anyway, that's that generation. We can bring it back to the 1850s, to the beginning of the Romantic literature period,
Well,
so this has been going on for a while.
Well, and I also think that there is a unhealthy focus on happy in and of itself. I mean, this is one of those things where you can't be in a constant state of happy, otherwise that just becomes your new normal, and there's no, it's like, then it's just another day, then it's just another day at the office.
Right.
This perpetual search for this elusive thing called happiness. And yes, I think that there are multiple ways to do that, but this idea of I have, you know, and me personally, I really wish I was all that powerful. I really wish I had the power to make people happy. I'd be going around, you know, throwing my fairy dust all over the place. But this idea of making your partner happy, I do want to ask a specific question, because you know, I was just talking to a friend of mine who was talking about how it's her job to make sure that trying to make sure everybody has a wonderful holiday season. I'm going, okay, stop right there, because you can't. But is this an equal opportunity idea about making people happy, or is there an expectation that it lands harder on either men or on women, or are we all just kind of sucked into this happiness vortex?
I think it really depends on the culture we're living in, and the paradigms for masculinity and femininity and the expectations of men and women. So in the South, you might have more traditional expectations, where it's, you know, maybe, I mean, I don't want to say a pre-feminist framework, but there could definitely be more of that clarity of it's the woman's job to, you know, make the home, the man's job to bring in the income. Now, of course, that's not the South, but that paradigm may be more prominent in the South than in the North or the West Coast, you know, or the Middle, you know, the West Coast. So obviously, well, not obviously, but before feminism, women had a lot of quote unquote burdens to make the men happy. You know, it wasn't really expected that, and that was, you know, digestively through the kitchen, culinary, and at some level, yes, take care of your man sexually. But I think today, you know, and I don't know when the expression first happened, and it's one of the expressions I have the biggest beef with for men. Happy wife, happy life.
Oh, I hate that expression. Oh, I hate it.
I remember hearing a police officer was in the grocery line checkout, and he had some kind of almond coconut milk, and he said, "Yeah, she'll love me for this." And I wasn't inside his head, but you know, sure, the authentic bringing your partner something they enjoy versus like, oh, that'll get her off my back for a while. And so whenever I heard happy wife, happy life, I heard often a form of bypassing authentic emotional connection and a form of tolerance, you know, like
interesting.
Happy wife, happy life. Like it's quite superficial, and yet we could take it to some depth and say, it's very powerful when a man can be authentic, generative, loving to his partner, to his wife, of course. So, you know, obviously you could swing any expression two different ways. But I do think, you know, whether it lands more on men or women, you know, again, it depends on the subculture we're talking about. And, you know, I can speak, primarily from the male perspective. What I'm seeing in a lot of my male clients, what I'm seeing a lot is that, have you ever seen the film Fight Club?
Yes.
Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. There's a classic line in there when they talk about a generation of men raised by women. And that, you know, that's like, what, really post-1950s when boys were not around men in the trades and the crafts or whatever. And so now you had a whole generation, well, multiple generations of men raised by women. And what was the pattern that happened there often? Whether it was a tyrannical mother or whether it was, you know, a generative mother, whatever it was, but there was some version of make mama happy.
Right. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, which is to me just kind of that you know, happy wife, happy life kind of thing. So
for a boy to bring that kind of first primal relationship with the feminine into his formative developmental years, he's probably going to go two ways. A lot of times he's going to become, can I curse on this podcast?
Yes.
A lot of times he'll become the pent-up violent asshole. I ain't making mama happy. Screw that. So I'll just talk about the pendulum swings, and obviously there's shades of gray all in the middle. And then there's the opposite, the nice guy. Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy is a phenomenal book that I literally work with men on at times. And that's the guy who, the woman's wondering, like, where's the man in the man?
Right.
So he's swinging the other way, and maybe he's been perpetrated on by the patriarchy as well, with an abusive father or whatnot. And a big thing I work with men in is assertion versus aggression.
Yeah.
And it's very eye-opening for a lot of men, like, oh, I can be assertive and I'm not actually creating the same damage that my father did to me or everybody else.
I'll
just go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to zoom back into, the experience of a man where he feels like he has to make his woman happy. Again, a generation of men raised by women, that initial, make mama happy. And so in psychology, they'll call that the mother wound.
Right.
And so does a man bring that into his marriage or not? Does he bring in this unconscious wiring that says, I got to make her happy? And then he's stuck in a scenario where, he's been raised in the man box, which is basically is allowed access to 1 out of 4 emotions. So I know it's not PC to say retarded, but he's emotionally retarded or emotionally undeveloped. He gets access to anger, but he doesn't get access to fear, sadness, and joy. And I just use those 4 basic emotions just for to be concise. So he's got and then this post-feminist woman is like wanting emotional availability, emotional connection. She wants it to be relational. So he's trying to please, but yet he doesn't have all the emotional wiring to actually be fully relational and be connected. And it's often a shit show.
So we're talking about the problem with this idea of focusing on making somebody else happy. So what do people need to do instead?
Take responsibility for their own happiness, which on the most basic level means, like, the minute I'm going to complain to her and say, she ain't doing this, she ain't doing that, she ain't doing that, I just take a pause and I get in touch with the emotion. Oh, I'm experiencing anger, frustration, irritation. Well, what's underneath that? Oh, there's some sadness. Oh, well, what's underneath that? Oh, I actually feel disrespected because certain things aren't put together in the home that I'd like. Well, okay. In that capacity right there, in that little process, I'm taking some responsibility for my own happiness, to be clear about what I want, to be clear about speaking my needs, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also, if I've had some training, understanding that it's not her job to make me happy. The way I become happy is I get in touch with what's actually happening for me. I take responsibility for it. I decide if it's a battle worth fighting, and I speak my truth lovingly and kindly.
Well, and I want to stand up because women need to be doing that same thing. And I know that offline you and I were talking about Terry Real, and I know that one of the things that he talks about is, criticizing and complaining is easy. Making a request for what you want is harder, but it's actually the more functional way to go. It's like, and because complaining,
he actually says asking for what you want and receiving it is much more vulnerable and thus harder than complaining.
And it is because when we're complaining, on some level that's easy, but then the other person doesn't necessarily know what it is what the instead is. All we know is this isn't working.
I always like to say
next?
It's not about. I'm sorry, we're talking over each other. I just want to say I always say it's not about the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
It's about feeling seen, feeling respected, feeling like, hey, this is important to me, and tidiness and orderliness. Can we try to meet somewhere on that?
Mm-hmm. Right. So this is Happily Ever After. After is just the beginning on webtalkradio.net. I'm talking about the unproductive consequences of taking on the job to make your partner happy with relationship coach and author Stuart Motola. And this is Leslie Dories, and if you fall prey to this idea and you're exhausted trying to achieve it, you're not alone, but you can learn to do something else. And if you're interested in finding out how, I invite you to pause and contact me today. You can reach me at Leslie, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. That's FOUNDATIONS, coaching, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie.com. Or you can call me at area code 919-924-0463. Again, that's 919-924-0463. And I want to get back to this conversation about how we get caught up in this focusing on the other person, making their happiness be the be-all and end-all, or they make their happiness be the be-all and end-all for us. So, Stuart, you wrote a recent post for the Good Men Project entitled, Why You Can't Make Her Happy. And you talked a little bit about some of what we've already talked about, and you did talk about focusing on yourself. So why is this the better way to go?
Well, I'd say in a nutshell, you just have much more power and much more control and influence over yourself than you do over anybody else. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just, in the most concise manner. And often the projection that we can, I mean, let's face it, the idea that we can make somebody else happy is quite arrogant when you really think about it. Mm-hmm. We can make somebody feel seen. We can make them feel witnessed. We can make them feel connected. But the truth is, until we see, witness, and connect with ourselves, it's really hard to have an external experience of something that you haven't actually experienced internally. And so specifically for men, I'm putting out a blog this week where I asked a client of mine, how are you feeling? And he's like, yeah, well, I'm frustrated because of this, this, and this, and this, and this. And he goes off on all the data. I'm like, wait a minute, how are you feeling? And he keeps going on the data. I can't tell you the amount of times I see that. And I just pause and I say, let's try this. Are you sad, mad, happy, or is it sad, mad, happy, or
joyful?
Afraid?
Yeah, or afraid. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I said happy.
Yeah, right.
Sad, mad. But the ability to know what's happening within yourself, your emotions, the impact that your partner's having on you, all that allows you to be more clear with what you need and what you want in your relationship, instead of just, like we were talking before, just complaining. Much more powerful to speak really clearly on what you want. And the only way that's going to happen is by focusing on yourself and really knowing who you are. It's astounding the amount of people who are in relationships that don't share the same values. There's one of my teachers, John DeMartini, has a simple 13 question that helps clarify your values. It's really powerful. And I mean, the amount of times I see a man in a relationship, and relationship's not even one of his 3 top values.
Well, yes, and unfortunately that does tend to become the way things go, because I think a lot of times relationships are taken for granted. Once it's kind of like, well, we've kind of committed to each other, so now there's nothing else to do. I can go out and do whatever other things that are important in my life. And it's like, whoa. That relationship is not going to be here when you get back, if that's your attitude. But you were talking about this going internal, this idea of not talking about the content of, okay, so I got cut off by so-and-so on the highway, and this happened at work, and this is going on at home, which is all content. And you're actually talking about going down into, you're asking somebody, well, what do you feel? And a lot of times for both, definitely for a lot of men, and I think even for women, you ask them that question and they don't know what you're talking about. So what's the process to go inside to identify what you're actually feeling?
The biggest one is just to pause and take a breath, and the breath connects you to your body, and inevitably the breath takes you below your head. So a lot of times I'll coach clients, I'll say below the neck or below the head. Like breathe into your heart, breathe into your gut. And sometimes I'll say even breathe into your sex organ. Feel those other parts of you. Start giving them attention and energy because they have data for you as well. They have information. And that's a practice. That's not just going to happen overnight for somebody who hasn't. It's just like anything. You go to the gym, you're not going to bench press 250. You got to start at 75 or 100 or whatever. So I'll take people into that practice to just develop that muscle of breathing into their heart, their gut, their other parts. And, just having that practice alone will typically help people eventually drop into what the feeling is. Okay, well, what happens to me when I experience that feeling? Oh, well, then we can go into, I want to escape it. I hate myself for feeling that. This is how I judge myself. Now my critic is kicking on, so I'm not just dealing with the anxiety of fear. Well, now I'm also dealing with another part of me that's judging me for having the fear. You're a wimp. How are you going to make it through the world like this? So a lot of times with clients, I'll lay out different characters right in front of us. Hey, let's talk to your critic. What does he really want from you? And sometimes I'll even pivot clients in 180s. Like, okay, sit here. Okay, now you're going to be the voice of the critic. Now you're going to be in you. How's it feel to receive that from the critic? Et cetera, et cetera. And, there's tons of parts we can talk about. The caretaker is a huge one that comes into, that whole make your partner happy.
So this leads to this other post that you put on your blog, and you were specifically in this particular post talking about two characters, but that get in the way. But this whole concept of characters, because I think most of us are our worst critic. We're always thinking that we're screwing up, and that all these other people having these wonderful lives, and we're just like these worthless people. Unless, of course, you're a narcissist, but that's a whole other conversation. But can you talk a little bit more about these characters and how they get in the way of this process of, I guess, figuring out who our authentic self even is?
Sure. I'm actually looking at that blog post, and I have one, and it was written on like a garbage bag handwriting, and it says, the caretaker, and sometimes spontaneously I have to just find whatever I can find to write things down. He takes it all on as a sideways way of keeping everyone safe, most of all himself or herself, using the he here. He wants peace and love at any cost, even if it's the cost of himself. That's very powerful. In the interim, he does exactly that, overburdens himself to the point of absolute burnout and even self-destruction. Instead, he may exercise healthy boundaries, assertion, releasing, letting go, and embodying and being love. And I think what's fascinating about, the caretaker is usually was inherited as a childhood mechanism to be safe.
Sure.
So in my home specifically, I was kind of the peacemaker. My brother was definitely much more physical. My dad definitely had a big verbal temper. And I was a sweet, sensitive boy, the younger brother who just wanted peace, wanted everybody to be happy. So I brought that caretaker into my marriage, and it resulted in a book called Fixing You Is Killing Me. My wife had a lot of chronic illness, and so I had this Romeo Save the Juliet kind of programming. And I thought caretaking was the most authentic form of love until I realized that it was actually killing me. And in the nice guy, one last thing I'll say is in the nice guy programming, which has a lot of caretaker energy. So again, a man who's like the nice guy, and the woman might be wondering, like, where's the man in this guy? Maybe it's the new age wimp or whatever. But
right.
One of the things I love that Glover says is he says the nice guy is actually a manipulative asshole, and he doesn't have the guts to ask for what he really wants. So he's just nice, trying to please his partner to get the love that he doesn't have the balls to ask for.
Wow.
And then shit comes out sideways.
But it's dead on.
Right. And then the problem is, though, all that lack of assertion builds up, and then he freaks out once in a while. And then she's like, what am I married to, Jekyll and Hyde here? Holy shit. And I will say I had some of that. You know, I had superhero and villain. And my ex-wife would talk to that sometimes.
Right. And I'd argue that there are a lot of women out there who do their own version of caretaking, over-functioning, that I have to do this in order to be loved. And so
it's funny you say that. I'm laughing. Because most women see the title and they're like, men do that too? The fiction is killing me. They say, men do that too?
And which is, you know, I mean, and the standard thing for women is that they give everything to their partners, and then they give everything to their kids, and then by the time they get into their late 40s, early 50s, they're like, screw this, it's all about me, and they throw the nuclear bomb into the relationship and everything, you know. It's like, oh my gosh. And so these characters are, you said something that was really, really critical, and you talked about your role in the family being the peacemaker, and these characters coming online when we're children. And it's in response to what's happening in our environment. And I have these conversations with my clients all the time. We'd be like, well, of course this is what you do. You learned to do it when you were 3, and dang, you're good at it.
Yeah.
You know, and they look at me like, what are you talking about? And then they can go back and go, just like with you, oh, there was a lot of hostility and whatever, and I just wanted everything to be peaceful, so I figured that was my job. And you probably got really good at it.
Yeah, we often hear it called as the maladaptive child.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so those strategies were, and part of the reason we perpetuate them into adulthood is because they worked fairly good in childhood to keep some equilibrium or status quo. And they were survival mechanisms. But that's the thing, when our growth hits a point as adults where we know we want more than survival. We want to thrive. We want to be alive. That's when, you know, I'll just say it, the shit comes to the surface and it's like, holy crap, this is not working anymore. I need help. I'm miserable.
Well, and it's something, and this is the thing that I think is critically important. One, I'd like, you know, I'm always trying to figure out how to get earlier and earlier into the system, but sometimes this just has to work its way out. But it will come to a head. Something, for most of us, something will trigger it, and it will come to a head. And by the way, guys, that's when things get really scary internally. But that's also when people can break the pattern, right?
Yep. I have a lot of, I have a chapter in my book that's about the false needs of the child versus the authentic needs of the adult.
Okay.
And I'm just taking a look there. So I just say, you know, or the unmet needs of the child avoids self-relationship, whereas the authentic adult cultivates healthy self-relationship. From the unmet child's needs comes that unmet child seeks to complete another in a relationship. So that goes back to our original theme of making someone else happy. Whereas the authentic adult seeks congruence and mutuality in relationship, as opposed to completing the other.
Right. Oh, yes. We're not going. I mean, that's another one of my, you know, line from Jerry Maguire. You complete me. Make me scream.
Yeah, but you know what? It makes for great movies. It makes for great fantasy. It sells tickets. It sells books. It's big business. I mean, it's escapism, fantasy. But that's the problem. When fantasy is lived in life, it sets us up for the nightmare.
And I think I love that analogy. I think that's a really true thing. And, I always talk about that really good relationships are boring as all get out to watch. They're not boring to be in, but they don't provide any drama or anything that anybody would want to put on a television screen or in a movie theater.
They might not make a lot of money. And a huge thing I talk about, too, is, and I spend a lot of time in Spain, and I'm actually possibly even immigrating there. I'm in the process of applying for citizenship.
Yeah.
But I say that in America, we don't have a relational culture. We have a transactional culture.
Well, yeah, that is true, and I think that's a source of a lot of challenge. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be a topic for another day. But can you share where people can find more information about you, your book, how to learn more about
Sure. I mean, simply put, my website, stuartmotola.com, and that's StuartMotola.com. I'm focusing mostly on helping men who are on the brink of divorce transform or move from crisis to transformation. And so a lot of times I'll talk to those men about, hey, do you want to cope and just kind of get through, or do you want to really use this as an opportunity to transform the rest of your life? And a great place to get really in depth on my work is my blog link. I do have a book link on the site as well. So,
well, terrific.
Opportunity to speak to that.
So the truth of the matter is that if you really want to have a happy relationship, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. You have to fill up your tank, and this requires showing up in an authentic way and requiring your partner to do the same. It doesn't mean you won't face challenges, because guess what, guys? That's part of life. But what it does mean is that you will show up stronger. And quite frankly, if you need help to do that, you're not alone, because most people do. But the successful ones actually get that help. So hopefully this has been a good program for you to listen to, and that you've learned a lot, and maybe you'll reach out. And until next week, stay loving.